idea ahora es... Tuvimos unos problemas técnicos que estamos tratando de resolver con Kim. Ni bien se conecte Kim acá, a ver si ya la puedo invitar.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you quite well, yeah.
I had to get my Minister of Technology here to help me. This is my first Instagram Live. I have no idea how to do this, so.
Don't worry, I think every time I do this, like, people, it's like the first time for them. It happened the same with Shane Siwet.
Right.
And I think it happened this again with Brian Butt from Mad Men. So don't worry about it. As I said to you like a few minutes ago, I'm gonna translate live. So the idea is to have short answers so I can like interpret what you are saying to me.
Okay.
We are going to do a few questions that I have here and also read a few from the ones that are watching our live stream.
Okay.
So how are you? It's been a while.
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm drinking a beer in a friend's house because yeah, we are like just starting to leave the lockdown again because of COVID. It's like we are like just receiving the second wave of COVID, so we are like trying to stay safe in our houses. And in this case, I'm visiting a friend who is like giving me his house to use as a headquarters for this interview.
And you're in Buenos Aires, right?
I'm in Buenos Aires, exactly. Yeah, I'm in Buenos Aires. So, first of all, welcome to this live stream. We are
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So, let me introduce to the people that is watching in Spanish. Estamos hablando con Kim Krizan. Ella fue una de las guionistas junto a Richard Linklater de la trilogía de Before. Escribió las dos primeras películas. Ahora le voy a preguntar dónde está, porque me está preguntando si yo estaba en Buenos Aires. Efectivamente, estoy en Buenos Aires. Where are you right now, Kim?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Ok. Bueno, dice que está en Los Ángeles, claramente. Esto es algo que no saben, ella fue jurado del Bafisi, del Festival de Cine Argentina de Buenos Aires. You were just a jury of the Buenos Aires Film Festival just a few days ago.
Yeah, I was. Is it called Basifi?
Bafisi.
Yeah. I was on a panel of judges for about 25 South American films.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really interesting to see the whole South American ethos. You're very dreamy down there. I must say, you're very dreamy people. No matter what you're telling a story about, you get dreamy, even if it's about kind of a difficult topic, painful crime, something. You guys still get awfully dreamy about things. So I think I have your number.
Okay, let me translate that. Dice que formó parte de uno de los paneles de jurados del Bafisi y que acá en Sudamérica somos muy soñadores, así estemos hablando de cuestiones por ahí un poco más pesadas como el dolor, lo que sea, somos pero muy soñadores. Do you remember which one was your favorite movie of all the movies that you saw?
Oh, there were a number of I don't know exactly what the Spanish translation is, but in English, it's something along the lines of things we dare not talk about. You might know the Spanish translation. Yeah, it was fantastic. It started with a Santa Claus flying in on a plane. It was just a wonderful story. There was also a really great documentary called I believe the way to pronounce it is Los Plebes. Plebes. We'd say in the US we'd say the plebes, but in Spanish I think it's Los Plebes. That was very good.
I'm going to look up all the Bafisi list of movies. So you said the first one because dice que la primera que vio fue una de Papá Noel volando en un avión. Which was the name of the Santa Claus movie that you told me?
Well, okay, I had to get the English translation, and it was something along the lines of things we dare not talk about. That was the English translation of the title.
dice que las cosas de las que no nos animamos a hablar sería algo así como la traducción de la película. Los plebeyos me dicen, they are telling me that Los Plebeyos is the name of the plebs that you are speaking also. The other movie. Yes, Plebeyos. Everyone is agreeing with you. It's Plebeyos, the other movie that you were discussing.
Okay.
So those are the movies that you saw in the festival. How did they contact you to be a part of the jury of this Bafisi festival?
Juan Manuel Dominguez, I believe is his name was, emailed me. He somehow knew me from somebody else, and he just asked me. I was a part of what was called the American competition, because there were a number of different competitions, and he asked me to participate in the American competition. They weren't, they were all in Spanish, all of these movies, but I was a part of a panel of, I think it was 5 or 6 judges, and they sent all the movies and asked for us to judge on a number of different matters, such as our favorite movie, our favorite short, our favorite actors, and such. So yeah, it was fun and it was interesting, and I feel like I know a lot more about South America now. I really do. I want to go. I really want to go.
You after all this ends, you have to come to Argentina at least. Las cosas que no decimos. I think it was the Spanish title. Someone here wrote the name of the movie that you were speaking about. Dice que la llamó Juan Manuel Domínguez, que no sabe cómo llegó a ella, que la invitó a ser parte del jurado, en un jurado que le tocó elegir mejor película, mejor corto, mejor actor, y así un montón de cosas, y por supuesto pudo aprender mucho más de nuestra cultura. Well, I think one of the main things that we were going to discuss today is the Before trilogy, la trilogía Before for us in Argentina. That is, at least the beginning is inspired in your own life. How was like reliving all those memories in a movie, like writing about them? Like, can you tell us about the process of like putting all your life into this movie?
Well, yeah, it was so traveling by train was something that I discovered I enjoyed very young, very early in life. When I was 20, I was in a car accident and it wasn't my fault, and I got enough money to do something with. And the first thing that came to my mind is that I'm going to go travel. And that very first trip was to England. I took a backpack. I had one pair of shoes, and I had a backpack, and I had very few clothes. I had a Brit Rail pass. I had cash on me. I didn't even have a credit card. I had a bunch of paperback novels. We did not have cell phones at that time. There was no internet. And I had a book called Let's Go that everybody used when they traveled. It was a big, thick book that had all the details about where to stay and what restaurants and what, all the tourist things you need to do. And that was my very first trip, and it was by myself, which I highly recommend. It's really good for the soul to travel by yourself and to lose all connection to everything that you know. So I flew to that first trip. I flew to England. I got off the plane. You're very jet lagged, and I took the train literally all over that island of England, and had so many incredible experiences, meeting people on the train, getting off with people and talking all day and seeing various interesting sights. So of course I had to do it again. I had to make enough money, and I was doing this in a very, I didn't have a lot of money, right? But actually that made it a lot more fun, because you're forced to be very creative when you don't have a lot of money. Not having a lot of money can be a great thing. So the next time I went by myself, and I decided to see Europe, and I wanted to see a bunch of the countries in Europe. So I had my Eurail pass, And, you know, once again, I had my money on me. I think at that point I may have had a credit card, just make things just a little bit safer. Because it's, I know that you guys can't imagine what it was like, be like to go without a cell phone, you know, nobody knows where you are.
Yeah.
But I just loved being on the trains and just letting my thoughts unspool, observing people, trying to listen to conversations. Each time I went to a new country, I would have to exchange money because it was before the euro.
Yeah.
And I would have to learn how to deal with that denomination of money each time.
Yeah, let me translate all this because it's so interesting. Dice que lo primero que pasó fue que tuvo un accidente que no fue su culpa, que decidió irse de viaje, que lo primero que hizo fue ir a Inglaterra, a Reino Unido. Tenía un boleto de tren para Inglaterra, que se cargó una mochila con lo único que tenía, con un libro que se llama Let's Go, que en realidad para nosotros sería Vamos, una especie de guía de turismo, que tenía algunos puntos turísticos y algunas recomendaciones para hacer. Ese fue el primer viaje que le hizo, dice que lo recomienda mucho, que es muy bueno para el alma, y que al año siguiente lo repitió y lo hizo en Europa, lo mismo. En ese momento no existía el euro, hoy Europa tiene el euro, entonces les permite atravesar distintos países con una misma moneda. Acá tenía que en cada país que entraba tener que cambiar la plata y aprender cuál era el valor de la moneda y un montón de cosas más. How was that? Like learning how much money do you have, how much was the value of the money you had, and not to be like to people take advantage of you because you were like so young. I think someone is asking which year this was.
My first trip was that trip to England was 1984, and the trip to Europe was in the late 1980s, and I was in my 20s. I was in my 20s, and it's really interesting, the thing about people taking advantage of you. I don't think, you know, you have to imagine our species got to this point. We are here because literally every single parent going back to the very first living cell, somehow had to survive to the point of reproducing. So we're not that dumb, you know? Yeah. We're not dumb. And so it was really interesting. When I first got off the train in England, immediately, right off the bat, somebody did try to take advantage of me. And I was really tired and I was jet lagged and I hadn't yet adjusted in any way. But I don't think people quite realize how smart we can be when we're in a difficult situation. I mean, suddenly all sorts of survival instincts can kick in and you can become the best actress or the best actor that ever lived and suddenly get yourself out of a situation. You know, you're pretty smart. And I got myself out of innumerable situations. But also, I really have to say, most people are good people, you know. Most people are kind. Most people are genuinely interested in other people. And they also can feel that, you know, you're a sincere person and you're no pushover. So most of my experiences, 99% of my experiences were great, you know.
Okay, let me translate this. Dice que el primer viaje fue más o menos en 1984 y el segundo para finales de los 80. Estábamos hablando de, siendo tan joven, ella tenía 20 más o menos, si se habían querido aprovechar de ella. Y dice que al principio parece que sí, pero que nosotros no somos tontos, que ya tenemos mucho recorrido, que para llegar a donde estamos, nuestros padres hicieron un montón de cosas y que ella aprendió a, como, dice que en esas circunstancias quizás un poco extremas, sacamos el mejor actor, la mejor actriz que tenemos dentro nuestro para salir adelante. So you met lots of people in those trips, and I think that's like maybe the main idea that you use in the movie, like the things that you discussed with those people that you met in those trips. How was like separating the things that you might discuss with a friend from the things that you might discuss with someone that you have like a romantic interest, like something like that, like you are maybe falling for someone, or like you see something else happening instead of like discussing like trivialized things with like your friends, like the weather, like I don't know, like how good is a trip, whatever. How do you choose the topics you use in the movie to speak about things that show how much you can love someone and how much you can feel for someone?
Well, you know, while traveling, in my real life experience was there was really no reason for me to be particularly guarded, because I was never going to see any of these people that I met on the train again. And there was no reason for me not to be honest, and reveal who I was, you know, there. And I'm imagining a certain amount of instinct kicks in. Like if you're really enjoying somebody's company, you know, there's really no reason not to be, you don't have months and months to get to know the person. You know, it's not like at a job or something where or in a classroom or something like that, where you've got the entire semester to get to know them and you better hold your horses. You know, it's not like that. You're on the train and you're going to be parting ways in whatever, you know, 4 hours or something. And so, you know, might as well be candid with people, right?
Yeah. Bueno, dice que tenés que ser agradable con la gente porque no tenés 4 meses para conocerte como puedes tener en un curso, en lo que sea. Entonces, como que es mucho más rápido, pero también tenés que ser más tranquilo a la hora de intentar conocerte con alguien. Did you have any experience like the ones Jessie and Celine had in the train?
Well, similar. I mean, there were some similarities. I did, for example, I was in Spain, and I got on the train, and at one point I was sitting across from this handsome guy, and he was from Norway, and we had this, you know, great conversation about our cultures and our countries and the things we were going through in our lives. And we actually talked for hours. And at some point on our way, we were going to Paris. And I knew that he was going to then go on to back home to Norway. And at some point on the trip, he had to get up to use the restroom. And when he got up, I could see that he was partially paralyzed.
Yeah.
And I did not know that for hours. And when he got back and sat down, he explained it to me. And he had been a professional athlete. He was a professional athlete. And at age 25, he had had a serious stroke. And he lost the use of one side of his body. And we talked about that. And then when the train pulled into Paris, we said goodbye, we parted ways. We had this great conversation, and we parted ways. And then a few minutes later, we crossed paths on the street. And we said, hi, hi. How many hours are you here before your train goes? And he told me how many hours. And so we spent the rest of the time before he had to go get on the train and go back to Norway, walking and talking on the street. So, and I don't know his last name, and I do not have his number. And, there were experiences like that, where they were interesting and romantic,
Yeah, let me translate. Dice que, bueno, le pregunté si había tenido alguna experiencia similar a la que tienen Jessie y Celine en el tren. Me dice que yendo a París, se había cruzado desde España a Francia, se cruzó con un noruego con el que le entablaron una relación, empezaron a hablar, como que se llevaron muy bien. En un momento él se levanta a ir al baño y tenía la mitad del cuerpo paralizado, que dice que él había sido un atleta y que a los 25 años tuvo una ACV y que, bueno, le quedó la mitad del cuerpo paralizado. Hablaron un montón, muy buena onda todo, llegaron, se bajaron en París y que al tiempo se cruzaron de vuelta en París y que a partir de ese momento decidieron cómo pasar, le preguntó cuánto tiempo le faltaba a él para tener que volver a subirse al tren y decidieron pasar juntos el resto del día y como que nada, hablaron un montón de cosas, se imaginan como las que pasan en la película. Someone is asking you, how did you come up with the ending of Before Sunset? And they say it's so unique and perfect.
For Before Sunset?
Yeah.
Oh, it's kind of, thank you very much for saying that. It's kind of a classic parting of ways, isn't it? I mean, that happens sometimes in life where you realize that you have a special connection with somebody and yet you're going to have to probably part ways. And it's poignant and it's sad and it's bittersweet, right? I mean, I'm sure that many of us have something like that, right?
Yeah. Dice que es, nada, que es el clásico final de una película, que es triste, que es agridulce, pero que muchos de nosotros seguramente tenemos una experiencia de ese estilo. Is there like any things that you remember from your relationship with the Norwegian guy, with Selena and Jesse? Did you use any of that experience in that, like saying goodbye at the end of Before Sunset?
Oh God. You know, I remember saying goodbye to him, you know, and we did not exchange information. And you know, you don't know for sure if someone feels the same way you feel or if they feel something you're not feeling. You never know exactly, and you're left to guess, right? And before the internet, it was very difficult to get in touch with people, you know, and if you wanted to stay in touch with people, you had to exchange information, and that's a risk, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it you know, in a strange way, it was very romantic the way things were before the internet. I mean, I know it sounds like risky, but
yeah.
in a strange way, it's very romantic, because this is what happens in life. I mean, you're meeting so many people, and you don't really know what path you would take with people. You don't know. You have no idea what would be down the line.
Yeah. Bueno, dice que nada, que no sabía ni el apellido, no se pidieron los números, que era medio peligroso también intercambiar la información porque en ese momento no había internet y que nada, fue como una forma romántica de ver la vida. Someone is saying that you have to do the movie about the Norwegian guy. Someone is saying we have to find the guy. Let me see, because there's people asking a few questions here. Well, someone here is asking you your opinion about the other two movies. You wrote the second one, but you didn't come back for the third one. So what do you think of the other two? Because I think you told me this last time we talked, that you finished the first movie without thinking of a sequel.
Yeah, correct. Right. Oh, we weren't thinking of sequels at all. And I think sequels can be a little bit risky, right? I mean, people, you can really blow it with a sequel and ruin all the magic, right?
Yeah.
With the second movie, I mean, I did feel a lot of trepidation about writing that second movie, and the script was actually quite a bit longer. I had been tasked really with writing most of that script because Rick was busy with something else, and I can't remember what it was, but I ended up writing quite a bit for that second script that they ended up they shortened it. Have you noticed it's a very short movie?
Yeah, it's I think 1 hour and a half, I think,
or maybe less, less. And so there were pieces of that were not used. When it comes to the third movie, I kind of like to contribute beauty and hope to the world, and I felt like they were heading in a different direction, and so I wasn't really wanting to participate so much in that third movie.
Yeah.
But they're using the characters that I created with Rick, and so my DNA is there, but I wasn't wanting to go in that direction.
Ok. Bueno, dice que para la primera, que obviamente tenían cierto miedo de arruinar con una secuela una película, que bueno, ella hizo gran parte porque Richard Linklater estaba ocupado con otro proyecto, ahora le preguntamos cuál, y que para la tercera no quiso participar porque estaban yendo para un lado que quizás a ella no le gustaba tanto, que está su ADN, obviamente son sus personajes, pero ella quiere contribuir con cosas como más lindas, con como que sean más esperanzadoras, y le parece que la tercera película iba por otro lado. Before we start speaking about the sequels, I think someone is asking you about the shooting experience of Before Sunrise. Were you around while they were, because you showed me a picture last time, I don't know if you have it there, but were you around while they were shooting the first movie?
I put those pictures that I showed you on my Instagram, so
Yeah.
they're all on my Instagram. But I did show up, yes, in Vienna for the filming of Before Sunrise. But I have to tell you that generally they don't want writers on film sets. Did you know that? Because the writer's job is really over and done.
Yeah.
And generally writers can be you know, sometimes real touchy about what's happening with their story. And so oftentimes they're not really invited to the film set. I did go to the film set, and I when I got there, Rick showed me the locations that he selected, and we went on. I actually posted a couple photos from the little walk we took where he showed me various locations, and they're on Instagram. But you know, yeah, Vienna is a very romantic city, and so I was there at the train station for the, you know, those very key scenes. Yes.
Ya, bueno, dice que obviamente que él estuvo antes de que empezaran a rodar, y que por lo general en las producciones no gusta que estén los guionistas porque como que meten mucha mano y no les gusta que les cambien un poco la historia. Recordemos que las películas por lo general las escriben los guionistas, pero después los directores hacen lo que quieren con eso, y que bueno, obviamente no querían que esté dando vueltas, y que estuvo en Viena, que es quizás el lugar más romántico que tiene la película, que estuvo mientras hicieron algunas de las escenas más románticas. Did you remember like the time you saw like there was chemistry between Ethan and Julie?
In the beginning, I would say there wasn't chemistry.
Oh, please explain that.
I would say there wasn't any chemistry in the beginning. Yeah. I maybe it developed over time.
Yeah, but
maybe
now you can see it.
Or perhaps they're excellent actors, you know. But
okay.
But you know what I've come to discover is I really don't watch commentaries much anymore, because I find that a lot of what a lot of the camaraderie and the love and the what, you know, a lot of that is the show business, right? You know, it's show business where they're telling a story and they're romanticizing and mythologizing.
Yeah.
And so I think you would be fascinated by some of the things that go on behind the scenes sometimes, yeah. Because sometimes people don't like each other at all.
Yeah, I think The Notebook is quite an example of this. Like Ryan Gosling and what's the name? Rachel McAdams didn't get along at all.
Oh, really?
At the beginning, yeah. Oh. And then they developed this like relationship. Let me translate this because I think that they are not expecting this. Le pregunté cómo se llevaban al principio Julie y Ethan, y dice que al principio no había mucha química y que nada, se fue como construyendo, o tal vez son muy buenos actores porque nada, como que no le gusta hablar mucho de ese vínculo porque nada, es parte de trabajo y capaz que había metodología, había un montón de cosas que forman parte, ¿no?, de la magia y es lo que tienen que hacer, pero bueno, al principio quizás no había demasiado, pero it's interesting that you are saying that they don't get along, because I think by the third movie they were almost a real couple. They wrote their lines. They I think in last quarantine they did like an Instagram live speaking about movies too. So it's like they left that behind and started a relationship, like a friendship maybe. So I don't know if you get in touch with them after the movies. If you are in touch with them right now, how's your relationship with them?
you know what? I haven't seen him in a long time. I don't really know what's going on with them, but you know, I'm sure that after working on 3 movies, very intense movies, you would have. I mean, it's like with any job, you know, so sometimes you meet people and the first day of the job you think, oh my God, I really don't like this person and I'm going to have to work with them. And then after you've been through so many experiences with them,
Yeah.
there's something there, you know, you have shared history.
Ya. Dice que nada, que forma parte del trabajo y conoces un montón de gente y que para el final hay un montón de cosas que terminas compartiendo. I want to keep reading the questions that people is sending to you. One is asking here how hard is to write a movie about love and like hope it won't end in a cliche or just a basic ending.
How hard is it to write a movie about love that doesn't end in a cliche?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I believe the answer to that is the deeper you go inside, you will connect with the unique experiences that you had. The answer for a writer really is the deeper you go inside, the more original you are, because what comes out is really the shape of you. But you also hit that universal vein where everybody understands what you're talking about and what you're dealing with. It's like that collective. You hit that collective pool of human experience. But I as a writer, I think the answer is you go so deep within yourself. You almost go deeper than your ego. You go deeper than your fear of any critics or what anybody thinks. And the more you go in, the more original it gets, but also the more collective it gets.
Okay.
Does that?
Yeah. Dice que la clave está hablando para quizás algún guionista, lo mejor que puedes hacer es lo más profundo de tu propio ser, que vas a encontrar como la forma de vos, vas a salir de los lugares comunes y vas a encontrar como el núcleo, un núcleo que quizás llega a ser universal, ¿no? O sea, más allá digo que las experiencias son personales, algo así está diciendo, el núcleo que terminas tocando, o el tema que terminas tocando, se vuelve universal y por eso termina siendo como entendido por todos. They are asking you about your experience working, and I think this is a good question. Working and writing with Richard. How's writing with him? How's that process? Like, who start, like, this is a good idea, this is not a good idea, like, how's that process with Richard?
Well, I started working with him on his very first film, which was Slacker. And I met him, I believe I met him in, I think it was 1988 or 9. And I was one of the characters in Slacker. And his method was so relaxed. Basically, I had never acted before in my life. And when he met me, and it was a casting appointment, but really he just asked me about myself. And then when he put me in Slacker, he just asked me to talk. The only thing he did was he listened to a conversation I had with the other girls in the scene. And he asked me to play the more negative, critical, sort of judgmental sort of character. And so he gave very little instruction. It was more like he was listening carefully to what everyone is saying. He's a very good listener. And then he put me in Dazed and then Waking Life. My part in Waking Life was he had I told him what I thought about language. And then he, you know, some time later, like many months later, he said, remember that thing you told me about language? I want you to do that in Waking Life. So he gave me a lot of free rein. In Before Sunrise, he just asked me if I would write a boy-girl story with him.
Yeah.
And he, the structure, I said, well, you know how the structure of all of his stories is kind of finite. And so I said, well, you know, some great experiences I've had are meeting people on trains. They're very finite experiences. So,
yeah.
So that was the beginning of the Before Sunrise story.
Ok, bueno, dice que lo conoció más o menos a finales de los 80, que ella audicionó para la película Slacker, que le hizo ser como el personaje por ahí más negativo, que se la pasa juzgando a todos, y que es muy bueno escuchando, y que con el tiempo la invitó a escribir para una película sobre un chico que conoce a una chica, y ahí nace Before Sunrise, pero también le invitó a ser parte de Waking Life, esta película en la que ella le contó que ella tenía como una especie de monólogo o de ensayo sobre el amor, y se lo contó, y al tiempo él le dijo, ¿por qué no lo usamos en Waking Life? I want to ask you about, there's this thing of the second movie, about reliving characters, about redoing all over again, and you told me that you did most of the work of the second movie. Was he working on Boyhood while you were writing Before Sunset?
Was he working on, God, what was he was working on something, and I honestly cannot remember. Maybe it was Boyhood, maybe it was one of the very first parts of Boyhood, I'm not sure, but I just know that Rick and I started the script, started Before Sunset. We were doing that one that was in his place. Before Sunrise was written in my living room, and then we switched over to his apartment. Before Sunset, we were at that point in his condominium. And I remember we spent a lot of time going back and forth. And then he had to pass it off to me because he was busy with something. And I just ran with it. And it might have been Boyhood. He was busy with something.
Yeah, I think if you do the math, I think the dates are like quite...
Okay.
Dice que la primera empezaron escribiendo en su living y después en la casa de él, y que fueron y vinieron, y que en el caso de la segunda, la película, fue al revés, se juntaron en la casa de él hasta que en un momento él no pudo más y le dijo, termina la voz, porque cree que estaba ocupada con Boyhood. Someone is asking you if you know that many fans do the tour in Vienna that you wrote for the movie.
I've heard that. That is really sweet. That is really sweet. And I hope that when they're in Vienna, they have the chocolate cake. Do you know that Vienna is famous for that chocolate cake? It is.
I think Austria is famous, and Switzerland as well, for chocolate, and yeah.
Yeah, Vienna is it's a very subtly glamorous city. So subtle, you know. It's not in your face glamour. It's more of a low key kind of glamour, and it's a beautiful city, and the people are very, very nice, and yeah, it's great. I think it's really sweet that people go on a tour for Before Sunrise.
Bueno, dice que es muy dulce, o sea, que es muy lindo que la gente haga el tour, que se pregunta si comen la torta de chocolate, que es muy buena. Y lo otro que dice es que es glamorosa la ciudad, pero es como un perfil un poco más bajo lo que se ve en Viena, pero obviamente insiste con esto de que es lindo que hagan ese tour. I think there's a good question here. Microlife is asking you if if you've been a part of the third movie, which direction would have liked the movie to have? Because you were saying that you didn't like, it wasn't like hopeful, or I don't know the other thing that you mentioned, but which direction would you like to have for the third movie?
Oh, I probably would have drawn quite a bit from my life for that one. You know, I probably would have. So I met my husband at a film festival, and he stalked me actually at the film festival.
He's watching.
What?
He's watching right now.
Yeah. Oh, he knows he stalked me, and he asked me to marry him on our second date. So we have our own story, and I'm sure I would have drawn heavily from our story. And if we're getting to the point with the characters where they have been together for a while, yeah, I mean, it's relationships you pass out of that early romantic phase and you move on to other phases, which in some ways are deeper, which are very deep, and the journey, it's like the journey there are twists and turns, but I think mine would have been a bit more hopeful, Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah, if you pass that romantic state and it's deeper, it's that because that couple is going to last, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, I understand. Do you know, like in America, about 50% of couples get divorced.
Yeah, I think everywhere.
Is that the way it is in Argentina too?
I think, yeah. I don't know how, but yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
so I mean, I do understand that it's and the way the nuclear family is set up these days. I mean, we don't have a whole tribe around us, so that when someone is irritating us, we can get away from them for a little while and go hang out with some other people. No, we're stuck in a house with our immediate nuclear family. So it's no surprise that we irritate each other to death, right?
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
interesting. That's interesting coming from the writer of Before. Let me translate this. Dice primero que si ella hubiese escrito la tercera película, hubiese usado mucho de su experiencia personal. Dice que conoció a su marido en un festival de cine, que de hecho la acechó un poco, y que en la segunda cita le propuso casamiento. Probamos con esto de que está mirando, y ella dice, él ya sabe que me estuvo acechando, y que no le sorprende que en este contexto no estamos acostumbrados y que el 50% de las parejas en Estados Unidos se terminan divorciando, que yo le digo que para mí pasa en absolutamente todos lados, y que no tenemos a dónde ir, que terminamos, cambió mucho el contexto en el que nos vinculamos, ya no es más una tribu, no tenemos más a dónde ir a pedir ayuda, a pedir auxilio, y por eso digo, este contexto es el que termina un poco contribuyendo a que nos separemos. Before I continue reading, because there's lots of questions of people watching, I have one. I asked you last time we talked about why Jessie didn't kiss Celine after she played the song in the second one.
About why she's what?
About why Jessie didn't kiss Celine after she played the song in the second movie. She's playing the song.
Why did he didn't kiss her?
Yeah, and you told me that's because he's a gentleman. But then in the third movie they're a couple and they're married and they have kids. So why didn't you choose to get them kissed in that movie? That's a romantic movie without a kiss.
So he's. These are the choices that you have to make. I mean, was he fearful? Was he feeling guilty? Was he thinking about his family? Was he imagining? I mean, there's so many. It's interesting that a kiss is the ultimate romantic symbol. Yeah. That's really extremely. That's really interesting. Like for that for people seems to solidify. It's what everyone waits for in the movie, right?
Yeah.
And there's this huge screen, and the whole thing you're waiting for is the kiss, and it's like that means everything. It's interesting, and maybe it was different not to have the kiss, and maybe they're thinking about the kiss, and maybe they felt they couldn't have the kiss. I mean.
Ya, I can see that. Dice que es increíble que definamos las películas románticas a partir de un beso y que el beso parece que solidifica todo, pero que tal vez había miedo, que se pusieron a pensar en la familia, había un montón de cosas que pasaban por la cabeza y que por eso no terminan sucediendo. Jasmine is asking, these lovely characters who you created are so remarkable and remember. Tell about how you create them.
Well, when Rick and I first got together, the thing was, he told me that he wanted to write a boy-girl story. That's all we had. That was it. And we got together in my living room in Austin, Texas. And I knew that it would be best if we had a finite structure, because the movies he had made before that, Slacker, Dazed and Confused, had that closed, that kind of tight structure. So I suggested that the couple meet on a train. And then the fact is that Rick and I could really talk. We both enjoyed talking with one another. He's a great listener. I think I'm a good listener. And we are both, we're big readers and we like ideas. And so it was really fun to tell him an idea that I was having, and to have him play off of it and bounce off of it. And then I think I would do the same with him. And we laughed quite a bit. We he would tell me a story he'd heard and we would laugh. And I just think we had that kind of chemistry where we could talk. We were taking notes about what was interesting to us. And then all we had to do was just imagine that maybe couples very much like us met on a train. You know, in this case, it ended up being in Vienna. And how would we connect? You know, we'd see that we were the same age and we found one another interesting, and he'd have to maybe make the move.
Yeah.
And I'd have to be coy. And we just imagined what it would be to carry on the conversations that we had, because we had many conversations. Actually, our thing was playing pinball. Do you play pinball in Buenos Aires?
But not that much. I think in the computer, we play it in the computer nowadays. But yeah, there's a pinball in the movie.
Rick and I played pinball a lot.
Yeah, well, so that's why the pinball is in the movie.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bueno, dice que se juntaron en la casa de ella en Austin, Texas, y que son muy buenos escuchándose los dos, que leen un montón, que la idea era como uno empezaba a poner una idea, el otro escuchaba, decía que le parecía, y así iban y venían, y como que la idea era proponer constantemente, que hay mucho de compartir, y que una de las ideas que surgió de todo esto fue la idea de jugar al pinball. I think there's lots of questions here. We've been speaking for like almost an hour now. People saying this, that's the answer you gave about the kiss, about the absence of the kiss, is beautiful. I agree with this person. That's a good question. Yeah, they're asking, what do you think that will happen with Celine and Jesse in quarantine?
Oh, wow. Yeah, you know, that's interesting. I hope that in a weird way they would become a lot closer. You know, I can only sort of compare it to my husband and myself. I mean, you know what really stands out are the ways that you are different and the ways you need each other, right? I mean, the ways you are different, I'm quite a bit more quiet than my husband is. He's a loud person. and I'm just constantly like, oh, you know, God. So I think these differences really stand out, but also the ways that you work together and the ways that you need each other and lean on each other and find solace in each other really stands out too, because it's wonderful to have somebody to go through a fearful, you know, a frightening experience with, and to know that you can lean on them and say that you're frightened, or, you know, you can't wait to get through this thing, and what trip are we going to go on next? We're going to go to Buenos Aires, you know? So.
Yeah. Well, let me translate. Dice que cree que la cuarentena haría que estén más juntos, más unidos, y habla de su experiencia personal, que es muy distinta a su pareja, que él es más quizás extrovertido, ella es un poco más tranquila, más callada, pero cree que está bueno tener a alguien con quien atravesar un momento tan difícil como este. I think this is the moment to close this interview, because if we continue reading the questions, we are going to go for like almost an hour more. So I have one more question. I was like noticing today while preparing this interview that it's like you wrote the first movie, then they pass like 10 years and you have the second one, almost 10 years, you have the third one. It's almost 10 years. Are you going to have a fourth movie, or are you planning? I don't know if you are in contact with Richard.
I honestly don't know what the plan is for that. I really, really don't know. And it's very risky, you know, to have sequels, because sometimes they go very wrong. And also I kind of like the idea that the characters live off in space, and that the people who love the movie imagine what happens, and they've sort of taken the characters in, and they're living out the characters themselves. I really like that idea. So I just don't know.
Yeah, you are not jealous of your characters.
I'm not jealous of my characters,
yeah.
No.
Bueno, dice que no sabe qué puede pasar, que realmente no tiene idea, pero que le encanta esta idea de que los personajes sigan viviendo en las cabezas de la gente que mira las películas y que se imaginen un montón de cosas. Are you in touch with Richard after all these years?
I haven't talked to him in a little while. I haven't. It's been a while. He's very busy, and I'm busy, so it's been a bit.
Ya, bueno, dice que hace un tiempo que no habla, él está ocupado, ella también. What's coming for you? What are you working on these days?
You know what? I've got a couple of things going on. The pandemic put a little stop to one of my projects. And then I have another one because everybody asks me so many questions about writing. So I have another thing, and I don't want to jinx them too much. So I better not say much.
Okay.
I better not jinx them.
Okay, don't worry.
I have been working on stuff.
Ok, dice que está escribiendo, que no lo quiere mufar, como decimos en la Argentina, pero que hay cosas en las que estuvo escribiendo, que le estuvieron preguntando sobre escritura, que en algún momento, si suceden, para no traer mala suerte, ya nos contará. Kim, thank you very much. I want to shout out to Chip that is like commenting and answering everyone that is like asking maybe like a specific question or like whatever, but he's asking, he's answering everywhere about you, about your work. He's commenting all this hour. He was commenting to.
I told you he's loud. I told you. See, he's even loud in the comments.
But he's doing his work. I think we have to be a little more. He's shushing you. And he is giving a link about your book. I don't know if you want to talk about your book before saying goodbye.
Oh, my book on Ani Isnin?
Yeah, he's mentioning a book, so
okay. I wrote a book on the diarist, Ani Isnin. She's, as you can tell from her name, she was of Spanish descent. She was a wonderful, wonderful diarist, and I did a lot of research on her. I worked in her home. And so I wrote a book on her called Spy in the House of Ani Isnin. This came out a little while ago, but and by the way, I originally had the Celine character reading from her diary in that introductory scene of Before Sunrise. I had Celine reading Ani Isnin, and Julie ended up she had another book that day and used the other book. Which made, and because I really wanted to do a plug for Ani Isnin. She was a wonderful writer, and more people should know about her.
Oh, so the title of the book is Spying on Ani Isnin. Is that correct?
Spy in the House of Ani Isnin.
Ok, bueno, dice que su libro se llama Espiando en la casa de Anaïs Nin, que es alguien sobre quien ella escribió mucho, que de hecho pensó en el personaje de Celine como si el primer libro que estuviera leyendo cuando se cruzó con Jessie fuera de Anaïs, pero justo ese día Julie tenía otro libro y entonces terminaron cambiándolo. I think that your thesis about Anaïs is the one that like connected you with Richard, if I'm correct?
Yeah, it really is. So when I met him, I was working on my master's thesis, and it was on Ani Isnin.
Yeah.
And our very first casting session, when he was deciding to put me in Slacker, he just asked me about my life. I told him about my master's thesis, but then he kept asking me, can I read your thesis? You know, can I read it? Can I read it? And I did not take him seriously, but I finally gave it to him. And that was really the basis of him asking me to co-write a movie with him, because he read my master's thesis. And he asked me to meet with him, and he had it sitting there on a restaurant table. And he said, yeah, you can write. Would you write a movie with me?
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Dice que cuando audicionó para Slacker, Richard le preguntó qué estaba haciendo. Ella estaba haciendo una tesis sobre Anaïs Nin y que le pidió que leerla, que la quería leer, y que fue porque la leyó y que le gustó cómo escribía, que le invitó a escribir antes del amanecer. Kim, thank you very much. I don't know if is anything more that you want to tell us that you're working on, that you wanted to promote? This is a moment.
Oh, you know what? I think I have things coming down the line. So if anybody out there wants to learn more about writing, I'll advertise it on Instagram when I'm ready to put it out in the world, okay?
Yeah. Bueno, obviamente dice que la busquen en Instagram, pueden fijarse acá el usuario de ella, la pueden buscar ahí, que lo va a promocionar ahí cuando tenga. They are saying that your book is fantastic.
Oh,
that is, yeah, this
thank
is
you.
Walter Mason is saying that your book is fantastic. Thank you very much, Kim, for speaking with me for like almost an hour, for upgrading your Instagram, for speaking and like explaining maybe the things that you always explain so many times. Thank you very, very much.
I really appreciate talking to you. Thank you very much for asking me, and thank you to all the people there. Heart. Okay.
Hope we can meet someday.
I really hope so too. I'd love it.
Have a nice weekend.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.